We are so happy to be here to have our first event at the Royal Ottawa. Radical Connections is a new not-for-profit, and we simply put, do arts programming for people in care or in care in their homes. And we feel very strongly that art and poetry and music are just as important to wellness as medical care. And so I would like to introduce to you Namitha Rahinappallai, and she is going to perform today Something Worth a Lineage. She is a queer, disabled, Tamil published spoken word poet, organizer, and workshop facilitator. She writes about belonging, resilience, and joy, founded and fostered as acts of simultaneous self-care and resistance. They have been creating, performing, commissioning, and competing, because that's what slam poets compete, locally and nationally since 2018. They are currently based in Toronto, and she lives there with her partner and her 2 cats. I was thinking, should we put a picture of Namitha's cats on the poster? Because I thought that would be really cute, and then I decided not. Anyway, so without further ado, here's Namitha.
My hands are blistered from the scalding heat of holding everything that has only ever wanted to burn me. As I watch myself run these tender palms under the cold stream and see the way that kindness to myself heals me, my singed fist now a soft and open hand, I now know the warmth of strangers was a disguise for the ways that they have tried to set me aflame. The biting relief I finally feel from healing these sore and aching extensions of me will teach me that from now on, I am kindling to no one's fire but my own. That to use fire to cleanse me is to say in the same breath that I am in need of cleansing, and what is more holy than a queer body? In Hinduism, to set a body aflame after its passing is to send it on its way to the new life, to a place where only the good things live. To crack the skull and allow the spirit to return to its stomping grounds. The belief that my love is something so rotten it deserves to be burned is to say this good thing is so pure you do not believe this earth sacred enough to hold it. You have only ever used fire to end a ceremony, to hunt people like me for sport, make us out to be nothing more than a bundle of sticks to be burned at the stake. But now I have risen from the ashes of every attempt to extinguish me. In the reflection of your very eyes, I see my rebirth, my cremation story turned creation story, and you call your burning of me ritual. Call it tradition. Call it anything but its own name. What do you call it when the blood of countless lovers is on your hands? Because you fed a flame with your caustic tongue, I have sent smoke signals to my ancestors every night to no avail. My life is lived by the candlelight for the ways that they have tried. My life is lived by the candlelight to hold a cremation for every elder I never got to meet. A fire will keep burning as long as there is fuel and oxygen. The words I speak and the breath I take is existence. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, sometimes I just like to start with a poem because I'm like, man, introductions are so hard. But here I am. So Namitha, she, they, I'm based in Toronto. I got here very early. Well, I left really early. I got here like an hour ago. But it's good to be here. It's good to be here and to jump right into poetry. This next poem, I'm really lucky that I was able to have it made into a cinepoem, so there is a visual element to it that is probably on my website. I don't know. I feel like artists are not great at like self-promotion. I feel like other people tend to, I don't know, be better at that job than people are for themselves. But yeah, I'm really lucky that it was able to be created into a cinepoem. It's gorgeous, and I feel like it breathes a new life into this poem. It's called Heart in My Throat. I belong to a family that does not experience pain. Our family crest reads, if you do not name it, it does not exist. So when my mother tells me while at an appointment for my esophageal spasms that my grandmother had the same pain, my spasms nearly stop in shock. To this day, I hear my mother whisper, if you do not set a place for your chronic pain at the dinner table, it will starve to death and cease to exist, you see. I nod while under the table I feed my pain like it is our family dog, because I fail to tell her that I cannot starve something that is me without also starving myself. Sabrina tells me her tumor that once made a home in her throat was from swallowing her words, and I wonder what words are trying to climb out of mine when it spasms. What words crawl their way up my belly, tired of being stomached. The doctor tells me these spasms are often mistaken for heart pain, that maybe my organs talk to each other of their aches. I want to catch my spasms like butterflies in a jar and hold them up to my ear, ask them what they are trying to tell me. Is this my grandmother using my body as a vessel, seeking a posthumous diagnosis? I tell her that if it is so, then I shall listen. I let these words sink all the way down to my belly and I feel full. I ask the spasms to tell her our endeavor for healing will be fruitful and its juices will dribble down our chins as we eat with delight. To tell her that we will no longer be lawyers in doctors' offices, arguing that our pain is real. To tell her that chronic pain is not my fault, not your fault, not a fault at all. Thank you. Okay. Sometimes you just want to write about silly little things. And I was really lucky that when I first moved out, I moved out with my best friend. But I think that there is something to be said about like grieving those moments when they are no longer. So I wrote this poem about living with her and about that experience. And it's called Life on the Sunny Side. Life on the sunny side looks something like when I woke up in the middle of the night, sick from both ends of my body, sitting on the toilet with a garbage can on my lap, and my roommate called telehealth, and the nurse asked her if I was pregnant, and my roommate said no. And the nurse said she might just not have told you. I looked up from my garbage can, still blinded by the bathroom light in the otherwise dark house, and laughed because who would I have told about a growing impossibility in my womb but her? Living on the sunny side looks something like dressing up for no one except the man at the convenience store so that we can walk home with clinking pockets, only to spend it on 2 loads of laundry. No matter how many loonies we come home with, it will never compare to the price of the memory of celebrating moving in by buying dish soap, chocolate ice cream, and garbage bags at this very museum showcasing our accolades from moving out. If I could fill that groceria with memories, I'd trade in all my loonies to display the nights we ran outside to see the moon, the day a family of raccoons climbed up the fire escape in time for dinner, and every summer afternoon whose soundtrack was the whirring of all of our fans at the highest setting. They say home is where your heart is, and you tell me you can hear my breathing through the wall. You know the sound of this heart beating because our shared wall beats along with it. We are never more than a few steps away. Life on the sunny side looks like the time passing by the punctuation of the 7 bus outside our windows every 20 minutes. It's Huff, our ticking minute and hour hand. It looks like shared sweat on the secondhand furniture from the notorious summer without an AC, how we survived it, our first summit together. Life on the sunny side looks like foraging moments of joy within the dirt for moving during a pandemic naturally has few. We found it in space we created for our long-distance lovers and the camaraderie we felt for doing so, for the ways we taught each other of our religions, placed our idols on our multi-religious altar, received kaivishesham for Tamil New Year, poured wine for each other on Pesach. This make and take of space is the foundation this home was built upon. It is the crying by the glow of the salt lamp, the cutting and pasting of National Geographics. It is the bad with the good and knowing we are better for it. Sunnyside will always be brighter with you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I was really lucky that this next poem was able to be published in an academic journal that was made to kind of like unpack these really big sociological concepts. And the one that I chose to explain through my poetry was intersectionality. So this poem is called Intersectionality, a play in 3 acts. Act 1. I am woman when raised in the air by the doctor, my gender declared by my genitals. I wear a tongue-in-cheek shade of pink to every occasion, a bow in my hair so that my girlhood never goes unnoticed. Strangers in my life read my future like it is a crystal ball. Tell me I will remain untouched until worthy, pure until union, beautiful before anything else. All this read from the palm of a newborn infant. I am told and not asked what I want. My life, a road trip I am given the directions for, but never the keys to. I am taught to be out of sight, silent preferably, during conversations, during arguments, during sex. Act 2. I am woman and brown at age 5 when I think my best friend more attractive than me because of and not despite her complexion. I learned to pray every morning that when I wipe down the foggy mirror, my distorted reflection and unknown complexion will be a white face instead. I learn a new lesson on silence. I do not move when the white girls compare their tanned forearms to mine in the blistering heat. Do not flinch when I am spoken over by the white people in the room. In my own family, this lesson of silence is one that I am homeschooled for too. I am taught to be out of sight when I am not serving others. My companions in the kitchen are the cardamom pods in the milk tea mocking me. Act 3. I am woman and brown and queer at age 18 when I leave my high school in the dust and finally see faces like mine love the way that I have been embarrassed to for years. I meet queer adults with dark skin and know now that I am the descendant of something beautiful, something worth a lineage. I learn yet another lesson on silence when the white gays talk about their families that know and still love them the same. When they share coming out stories like it is hazing to be accepted into queerness, I look at my palms and realize I do not know where these intersecting lines will lead me, but I know that it will be somewhere new. Epilogue. I am woman at birth, brown at 5, queer at 18. These parts of me found in myself in succession, and now I am all at once. Thank you. Okay. This next poem it's a little silly, but I'm glad that, I don't know, I think it's funny how I've been able to get my silly little poems in academic journals. Just makes a girl feel good. But this poem is about these mangoes that are specifically from Mumbai. My friend's stepdad is like very particular about his mangoes and gets them shipped like from Mumbai to Canada. And we were all like, there's no way they can't be that good. And then we had them and I wrote a poem about it. So, I mean, I think they were pretty good. So this is called Mumbai Mangoes. These golden suns in the palms of our hands, I hold this lesson before my lover as they grin with delight. I prepare the meal. I dig my fingers under its skin and peel it off clean. And I smile with delight that this feeling, this sink and strip, feels like home. The sun never sets when I hold it in my hand. Its juices slipping through my fingers like rays of sunshine. I hand my lover their naked fruit and teach them how to treasure it. The only sound in the room is the soft landing of our teeth in this fruit. For what greater prize is there than that first bite and the knowingness that the pit is soon to come? I gesture to my lover as I see them reaching for the seed's protector, the pit of the mango. I teach by example, sticky fingers swiping the dribbles down our lips, how to make this moment go on like ellipses. We later learned that to eat a mango while high is to make the high last longer, to stretch out this moment like chewed bubblegum between fingers, this experience seemingly going on forever. I learn again and again that the mango is the fruit of winding down, knowing that mangoes are older than the construction of time. I want to paint my walls this golden hour fruit color, rip down every clock and replace it with an oblong gamboge thing instead. Instead, I sit in this moment, full with the sun in my belly, the discarded carcasses, the only reminder that time has passed at all. Thank you. Alrighty. This poem I wrote for, I think in adulthood, you realize that friendships are a lot harder to keep in contact with people is a very intentional effort. And a friend of mine, I think, was really struggling with this. So I wanted to, show my gratitude for like how difficult this thing can be, but how beautiful and worthwhile it is. So this poem is called Astronomy Teaches Me About Friendship for Pauline. Instead of telling you that you need not apologize for the days when you bear the burden of being the pitcher that fills everyone else's cups, I will give you a lesson in astronomy. The sun is only ever present for half of our days, and we do not get mad at her for leaving us when she does. Instead, we stay up for her arrival, are awed by the colors of her dress, and take pictures to prove that she chose to grace us with her presence at all, because we will never be worthy of her, no matter how many times she lets us see her. When the moon is full, plump for the picking, we do not blame it for taking so long to fill itself up for us. We love her waxing and we love her waning. We only ever thank her for illuminating an otherwise dark sky, feeling her celestial spotlight on our earthly faces. Halley's Comet is only seen twice in a human lifetime, but we never beg for her to appear more often. We know we are nothing compared to her power, as mere mortals are owed nothing when able to see her with our naked eyes. You are a comet that I will always mark my calendar for. You are part of the universe, like the sun, like the moon, and any comet that dare dignify us with her presence. Any onlooker to your presence will never remember the times we do not see you, but rather will worship any moment that we bask in the sight of you. Thank you. Okay. This is a classic slam poem, which means I probably haven't performed it in a while. Yeah, I don't know if folks know slam poetry. Slam poetry is fun. It's a good energy. It is very competitive, and I think people burn out quickly. But again, it's a good time. It's a good time. It's like high energy. There's a lot, like big emotions. But yeah, it's a good time. I haven't done it in a while, but I'm excited to do it right now. This poem is called "The Spoon-Fed Honey is Bitter." I met my ex-boyfriend in a coffee shop. Both colonized and colonizer, he is half Sri Lankan and half white. He introduces himself, says his name is Unexpected. It is honey that I am spoon-fed instead of licking off my fingertips. It is suburban house stacked nice and neat. He will get the job he applies for. His name is the white tablecloth over the wooden table that we sit at, an ivory veil concealing the brown bark beneath it. His name is Ashamed. His name is melanin trapped in an ivory tower. His name is the sound of my jaw clanking against the silverware when I pretend to not be surprised when he tells me he is Sri Lankan too. I come to find that his name sounds a lot like the silence he speaks when I am attacked for my brownness. I swallow my pride, and instead we begin our feast. We tuck white napkins beneath lips licked and above entitled white dinner plates, only to be served by brown hands who spill the piping hot tea that Brown has never had a seat at the table. He is the coat he wears to the date, taking it off when it is convenient to do so, while using other women of color as a coat rack, while using other women of color as a doormat, wiping off his shoes on our backs. Why am I not surprised that you want no trace of Brown to be seen? This body is a home that you have no business being in, but I should have known that colonizer blood runs through your body. So as you can imagine, I heard my ancestors counsel, their voices bolting off the tip of my tongue before being smothered by his lips as I kissed him for the first time. This is the story of epigenetics, the notion that some trauma is so deep that it is passed down for generations. DNA strands twisted like my mother's braids into white ribbons during primary school. There is something so painfully ironic about her school uniform being all white in a sea of brown faces. This is the story of epigenetics, that when I went to a yoga class taught by a white woman, my mother laughingly scolded me, and I swear I heard an army of ancestral agreement behind her. How do you have white women teach you what we created? This knowledge is as deep and as dark as the blood that runs through my body. Is it true that the blacker the berry, the sweeter the injustice when he licks the juice off my lips as we kiss? I walk past the coffee shop 3 years later, and it has been renovated and is unrecognizable. The seats have switched sides, and I can barely conjure the image of the two of us sitting inside. I walk past the coffee shop, and it has been renovated. So have I. Thank you. Okay. If you have ever Googled me, you've probably seen this video. This was one of the first poems that I performed out loud in public. And my mother so lovingly shared it with multiple WhatsApp groups. So it has gotten tons of views, which is very sweet. But yeah, this poem means a lot to me. It is, one of the first poems that I feel like I have written and am still very, very proud of and holds a lot of meaning to me. And the poem is called To the Women of Sri Lanka. To the women of Sri Lanka, whose cocoa sweet skin gleams and glistens like the jewel of the ocean they call home. Living under the halo of the equator, they are angel sweet, honey dripping beautiful. Their pigment, the sun-kissed symbol of stamina through devoted labor, their eyes took a hint from their skin and became chameleons to grace themselves identically. Melanin turned Midas's touch. They are as beautiful as the jewelry they adorn their bodies with. To the women of Sri Lanka who carried the weight of their last names on their backs, long and winding like the paths in the tea fields whose lips, wet with the tangy sweat of summer heat, play soulful music. With syllables as instruments, their tongues dance a Bharatanatyam performance in their mouth when they speak in Tamil, so you can hear every curve and slight of each letter. Or the black coffee you put to your lips. No milk and sugar to make their existence sweeter for you to swallow. They are energy coursing through your veins. Your heart beats a little faster just so you can keep up. To the women of Sri Lanka, whose eyebrows bloom and flourish in the rich, fertile soil of swarthy skin, so beautifully unapologetic in the space they take up. If only the women these brows were bestowed upon could be so unapologetic for the space they take up. I want to write a poem to the women of Sri Lanka whose hands are calloused with the memory of picking up the slack, whose shoulders sink from bearing the responsibility of every unwanted action, word, and touch that has ever caused them harm, whose thick ebony braids keep them moored to their trauma. To the women of Sri Lanka who wag their fingers at leaving books open upon disuse, for fear that the knowledge will drift off the page into nothingness. But haven't we been pried and left open and still stand here with purpose? Who stand tall and proud of their roots like a forest, cutting them open just so you can count the number of rings of how many lives they've lived, how many times they've chosen life, the rose that grew through the cracks of acid attacks and dowries. When life gave them lemons, they squeezed it onto their henna to make it brighter, and isn't that just it? Melanin like rocks in their pockets, they are the resurrected Virginia Woolf's aspiring poetry. To the women of Sri Lanka, you deserve better. Whose melanin is seen as an invitation to harassment and hate, because even an armor of umber silk isn't as strong as the white man's grip on 400 years of oppression. To the women of Sri Lanka who have not known a life without fighting for it, who spell survival SACRIFICE, because dreams were the heirloom to never wear but passed down to the next generation, who brought home with them across borders and bridges, who are home but never will forget home, who built home in the names of their children and the aromas of their kitchens, who make tea hotter than Sri Lankan weather just so they can have the sweet taste of nostalgia in the morning, who are artists. With a dinner plate for palettes and curries for paints and hands for paintbrushes, they fill the canvas of eager mouths knowing they create a fleeting masterpiece. Work that won't be admired by strangers in a gallery, they create all the same, but carry the greatest work of art between the frame of their lips, their accent. The love child between their mother tongue and English, how beautiful it is to hear two voices in one mouth. To the women of Sri Lanka who pray to 330 million gods, knowing they are all manifestations of one, don't they know that they are the one these gods are manifestations of? To the women of Sri Lanka, not the 26 letters of the English alphabet, nor the 247 in Tamil could ever do you justice. To the women of Sri Lanka, I am so grateful I was raised by you. Thank you. Okay. All righty. This is going to be my second last poem. Another slam poem. I feel like I have such a earnest love for these first poems that I've written that I don't totally hate. And I'm like, there was something there. So this poem is called When Someone Says You Fight Like a Girl. When someone says you fight like a girl, say thank you. You see, everything about being a woman is about fight. Woman, by definition, is treading on ground that wants to swallow you whole. Every step we take is an act of rebellion, but this quicksand existence is a death sentence. Every word we speak is a battle cry to be heard. Every breath we take is too much space. We are taught from a young age that we take up too much space. They say boys hang lower in the womb. How is it that they exercise freedom they do not yet know of? Woman, by definition, is the realization that yelling fire instead of rape is more effective, because our bodies are worth less than objects, but we are treated as objects, used and abused. They break our hymens and spirits in the same assault. And when we speak up to say that we are worth more than nothing, it is a political statement that is somehow still disagreed upon. Instead, they treat us like flowers pressed between the pages of a book, told we are beautiful and then asphyxiated into darkness. What good is beauty if I am no longer alive? Uncredited sources and unpaid hours. Do I still make a sound if no one is around to about me? To be woman is to play a lifelong game of mercy measured by a yardstick of suffering. You are to put your hand in the mouth of trauma and be praised for how long you can stand it. In the dark corner of the world, to be woman is to go from open legs to open casket, fresh sheets to tuck you in 6 feet deep in the hopes that the dirt will mother you better than this world ever could. This carnage of women has become less sadness and more statistic. Men name ships and war machines after women because their jaws gape, and the first thing they think of when they see such power is women. So why is loving yourself treated more like a milestone of maturity and not something we should be born doing? We are only reminded that we are worth something when we are a belonging. To be someone's mother or sister or daughter, to be of proximity becomes our shelter, but as we sit in the shackles of misogyny, men are reminded of their privilege, delicately. Coddled into passivity, privilege is having both the messenger and the message accommodate to you. To tiptoe around the reality is to dance on the ashes of those that did not survive it. To be woman is to be both the bullet and the teeth clenching it. So when someone says you fight like a girl, say thank you. You see, everything about being a woman is about fight. Thank you. Okay, because this is my last poem of the set, I feel like we needed to end on a light note. And I feel like this poem always does that. So this poem is called Politically Correct Responses to Catcalls. When he tells you to smile, remind him that it takes more muscles to frown than smile, and you're trying to get fucking ripped. When he asks you to shake what your mama gave you, say, hell yeah, boo. Put on some Drake and I'll shake that intergenerational trauma that I inherited but will never fully understand. I'll drop that thing low like my personal aspirations that I set aside to prioritize those of the men in my life. When he calls you princess, remind him if you were given $1 for every time you were called that, maybe you could actually live like one. When he calls you baby, explain to him the irony of him calling you that while he still relies on his mom to do everything for him because he's not nearly mature enough to verbalize his own needs and is overall unable to deal with his own shit. Or embody the title baby and projectile vomit all over him. When he asks you how much, let him know he could never afford it. When he revs his car engine at you, let it slide. Remind him that this is likely the only drive he has for life. When he tells you to let him take you out, flip the script. Tell him you'll take him out every other Thursday because I'm pretty sure Garbage Day is on a bi-weekly schedule. When he asks you what your sign is, tell him it's stop. Better yet, tell him it's sharp curve ahead. When he asks you if he thinks you can handle all this, say, could I handle someone whose macho hypermasculinity is obviously a cover for being terrifyingly insecure about his own intelligence? You're right, I probably couldn't handle that. When he tells you he'd tap that, let him know you wouldn't even double tap that. When he asks you where you're going, say school. Remind him that unlike him, you've got class. The only person turned on by his lack of class is probably like Karl Marx. Lastly, when he asks you if you're Indian, say, nah, I'm Sri Lankan. So call me Sri Lanka, because I will never be India. Thank you so much, folks.